I'm taking my ass directly into this WNDC, which is all right, NDC. Now WNDC ain't no radio station or whatnot. It's just my own little personal little thing that I do. WNDC stands for We in the Crib, and you ain't, you know. And then I had to put the NDC because I'm NDC and you might be, but you know. Anywho, yeah. So I'm live on YouTube right now. If you had YouTube, this is crazy. So for whomever, I just saw a quote come up on my phone that from my on my email. You are live on YouTube. Two. Living in this post quarantine life now. You know, shit like coughing. Is it what you doing? You coughing? You this that, and the other? Yeah. It's a trigger warning. I need to come out and just say, trigger warning. I'm about to cough. Stop smoking. Fuck you. You know? Meanwhile, back down on the farm. I gotta try to focus. Focus. All right. Some of that focus comes by way of some of the bits and pieces of things that I've been just reviewing. Here it is. We're into the throes of what is August. A lot of things going on, and a lot of times, you know, we spend our lives concentrating on so many other things that we don't get the chance to, you know, harbor our inner hippy sometimes, and that's where I'm at right now. And this one, you know, if you check the title, you know, got a girlfriend of mine. I didn't talk her ass to sleep, but she's still on here. That I get at least to see her and her cuteness and slumber and whatnot. Because, in some ways, part of my discomfort and my talents come by way of the resonance of my voice. Sometimes being able to have a lullaby effect on some people. They get interested in everything, but the more that you get intense, the more that they get into the I'm listening, but I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of tired and this, that, and the other. And why am I even going into this? But as a black male, from an upper metaphysical kind of mindset, you know, I find myself here at WNDC, NDC, trying to just give off some aspirations of who to thunk it for many of you that might be like, you know, bored enough to actually, you know, like, share, and subscribe. And if you can, donate. You ain't got to. I ain't begging nobody for nothing, but nothing says thank you like cash. And if this entertains, enlightens, or informs you, then even swap is no swindle. Now, actually, I need to plug in my earphones because it would be nice for me to know exactly how this mix is going out audio-wise. Video-wise, you stuck. I'm on an old laptop, so the optics are well enough to do HD, but come on, man, you got to see the pimples on the booty all the time, do you? Shit. All right, so here I am trying to remember. Why did I start this bullshit? I'm 4 minutes and 11 seconds into this shit, and about 4:20 I'll be finished with 4:20. I figured, if I do it correctly. All right. Here's my thing. My thing is, you know, I learned a long time ago that, you know, while, you know, we say that, you know, men are from Mars and women are from Venus or wherever else they are, you know, a lot of us, you know, are more from our Uranus, you know, then we like being called assholes at some time because we can't quite get with whatever comes by way of audacity in our social lives and whatnot. Congratulations, Pete. now have gotten to 420. So hang on as I attempt to get far enough for anybody to have any reason for you to do me a favor. If you are gone this far, it's 5 minutes and 18 seconds or so. How about you at least let me know if you can hear me by making a comment, liking, sharing, subscribing, but make a comment, at least put some hands up, make it look like somebody was there, because it's a free thing for me right now in this format to be here, but the least you can do. I'm trying to hold on to where I was at in this mindset, but my inner ADHD is in such an array where only if we actually plugged into some form of how'd I say it? Format as to where we're going with this whole thing. Alright. As a black guy, I'm talking about our people's genetically, our people's gender wise, our people from a now new evolving polarity of sorts that doesn't fit into any social roles, although we still are suffering from the genetic stigmas of not just our race, but also our genders, as well as I don't know if that makes sense to a lot of people, but all right, so they got this new movie coming out with the Warrior Woman, with the sisters coming out, to do her little thing, and in the meantime, I have to bring up the correlation of it and the Lovecraft scene in episode 7 where they had that little moment where she becomes Nawi. But Nawi is the last known person of that era that basically lasted all the way up until maybe 2009-ish kind of thing, right at the same era of the Tulsa thing. And I think these things are very important for people of color to really try to hang on and just wait for these gems, and maybe you'll have an aha moment, because we need more of these aha moments right now in the era that we're living in, because as the world is spinning, not just the soap opera of as the world turns, here we are, we're sitting here, and we ain't minding our own business because we ain't got no real business. We ain't got none. I mean, let's truth be told. And so I'm not going to bore you with this He-Man woman hating kind of speech, because that's not where it came from. I mean, the last episode you saw is me talking about a church girl, and if you found anything else about that more charming than anything else, then understand that I am the son of a church girl. And there's only one step away from me having earned some form of that kind of right, outside of the mere fact that most people would say my character is in such a weird array that I'm more of a very dominant white woman than I am in touch with my female black side. No offense, but we're talking about this warrior thing, and how they're talking about this last generation of these known African warrior sisters and whatnot. And deep down inside every melanated person, there are these instincts that tend to affect us, even somewhat with the men. And I really honestly, would probably go into some Tarantino shit and make my own next scene and be like, warrior woman. But yeah, I'm y'all. You could talk to me, and I can hear you, but they can't hear you. So just like if we were on regular, yeah. So we're all good there. I'm talking to my stylist on the other side, as I done woke her back up with this entertainment shit that I'm having. So we got a little thing going right now where, if my connection acts right in the whole nine. At least I have one person that's going to go back and review this moment in time all over at a later date. Yay. And be like, wow, I was there, but, something about watching it again, and on the other side, I guess this would be the other side. Welcome to the other side. Me and Mr. Butler, and that's another kind of thing because, we're now in a state we're in a state of life where for many of us, when you get to know you and yours, you also have to get to know you and yours and the pets and whatnot. They revolve around them too, and it can get even more as deep no matter which way, just culturally, like, you meet someone and they're like, I'm a bird lady. And they're like, what do you mean you're a bird lady? And then they take you out and then you're like, that hawk, we have had a long thing. And you're like, oh, this some Indian shit or something? I don't know how I feel about this shit. Was it going to be like birds if we break up? Look at this. Oh, no, that's pretty. That's roommates. You got the dog cleaning up the cat, chilling out, sitting up there. They've been living together as roommates for a long time. And, and not to sound very George Clinton-ish, but that would probably be a very good imitation of, nothing but the dog and me. But they always see the bark, bark, bark. Right. Why must that dog chase the cat? Because that heifer trying to sneak outside. Just a dog and me, And then you see these little cute memes and shit with, oh, look at that. It's the dog, it's the cat. And there's a bear and a kangaroo and a possum. And they're all together living wonderfully. Yeah, and none of you are Mr. What's that motherfucker? I can talk with the animals. Be with the animals. Then, you're right. And you're going, okay. If you that kind of good, then you need to go hang out with some of them African cats that got hyenas for pets. You sitting around there going, yo, man, does it bite? Why don't you ask her? And yeah, well, you know what? It's good to be. Ain't nothing wrong with that. When she done, she like, all right. Yeah. Right. Which is really interesting, They have that kind of thing, and while the dog is sitting over there getting off on, hey, and then, after a while, the cat be like, all right, now, that's enough of that shit, That's kind of where genetically we have these instincts, and there's no reason for anybody to have a problem with accepting any kind of bipolarism mentality because we're too far deep into reality that for whatever you think about your own mentality or the growth of it, right now we are all captive on this fucking marble called the earth, and science is trying not to really get any airtime and telling you, this has been another one of those interesting days where we don't know where the earth is going, but it's awfully bipolar. And, and for a lot of people, it's very frightening for you to find that some things that you thought were very uncomfortable to be around other people are now things that actually allow you to fit on this wobble as it wobbles better than some of these other people that have these moments where they go from zero to jumping off a cliff or driving through a motherfucking intersection and killing 14 people or some shit like that. And you go, what the fuck is wrong with these people? And that's another line of this whole thing. We're living in this kind of almost rapture-ish kind of time. And I'm not trying to get into no deep hoo-ha about this shit or get political, but the reality is that we are now in this change of this age of Aquarius and new, this formation of, the new world order of the ages and whatnot. We're stuck in this era right now where, unlike any other time of our social, there it is, nice, as you called it, right, nice, that's roommate shit right there, yeah, she's like, yeah, I see it, a little purple and reds. Yeah. Well, of course he is. Of course he is. We all up in there now. There's 4 people up in that room. That's kind of hot. And I think that's another thing right now that's actually coming on because for most people just watching this shit, you know, you have to understand we still are inviting ourselves and our energies in through this. And the best way that we can do that is to share, like, subscribe, say hey, comment, you know, and reach out if you can, and just, you know, if it entertains you or enlightens you or informs you to any degree, not personally, but in and around some of the things that feel kind of weird right now about how we're getting through 2022 and beyond, because you know, the age of Pisces is gone, and we are now into the age of Aquarius, and everything is changing. Our time, our errors, our splits, and not that it has to be regular, but there's nothing that's going to stop being regular or irregular until at least 2033, unless we adapt faster. And so far, the Earth is spinning a little bit faster, but they're not sure if that's because we're doing it right, or because more people are waking up, or because a lot of people are like, you know what, fuck that. What about this? God damn it, gas prices are too darn high. Why can't we find a mate? What's wrong with us? You know, I deserve to be better. So and so and so and so. This, that, and the other. And, you know, half of the things that we've been brought up on and stereotypes and folklores are so out of date, but still structured in it where you got to be smart about, you know, being around masses of people, but you got to be aware that you do have a certain talent or trait to be attracted to, or are aware of certain things, and it's best to know that talent as you travel amongst the world. Most people, they don't think that they need to ever mess with that shit because they ain't going nowhere, or they believe that they're not going nowhere, and that's fine. That's the reason why, you know, these creators created us, you know, and, you know, to be biodegradable. Problem is that some folks, you know, ain't quite understanding this shit, and, you know, other folks are just not trying to get to Soylent Green. They're people. And yet, here we are, just existing on this planet as people of color. We're undefined and all this other shit that we're really kind of bouncing around because, you know, even though everybody thinks that we're all allowed to be around everybody, we all have our still genetic structures that still kind of feels that way, you know. Kind of like being single, you know, and not necessarily wanting to be in the cohabitative state due to the fears of the discomfort of, all right, I'm good some days, but there's some days you wish you could just send them to the other side of the wing of the mansion or some shit like that, but it ain't like that. But, you know, if you do that shit in your regular society, it's everything. Next to you know, you and cheaters is running around the city looking for a reason for you to, you know, on some other shit that technically speaking we can't fit into defining these things as how we now can justify better, more healthier and productive associations with each other, and even more so through the genders, because as a culture we right now are also suffering from this state of the inability to be able to accept everyone, and that homophobic dumb shit is so conflictive on so many levels that not even P Valley can really, you know, wake you up any better, even though everybody could find something in that dynamic of color to see as, you know, some form of, okay, I'll take that, but not that, or not that. And it's not even your business to be worried about what everybody else gets wrong when you need to get more right in your own way. If you was doing, you know, the better part of just staying in your lane, you wouldn't have to worry about who else is in their lane doing some shit, and y'all all happen to be going the same freaking direction, you know. And it probably wouldn't, you know, probably be the best for your protection if they kept walls and things up so you didn't see how each person that worked in your environment, you know, had a loving relationship with their partner, because you wouldn't want to see how each one of them consummates that loving relationship personally, intimately, and be able to see them in the same light when they come in, you know, and be the characters that they are in the office. It's kind of hard to take orders from your boss when you know that he likes to wear blue female panties, and yet 2/3 of that is because of the instinct that it becomes more complicated for us to, you know, reach out to our people of color. And this doesn't necessarily mean totally in mentality or, you know, melaniness, but it does mean that in a lot of cases we lose the ability to be able to communicate on more of a Yeah, we need to get better at getting better at being better to not just ourselves, but each other. Can't do it to everybody, but we got to be ready for the ones that are ready for it. Even if they don't know it, we got to prove it by continually trying to evolve into understanding that this new world perspective exists and we exist in it. And in some cases, the worst thing about it is we may have a higher possibility of being more dominantly set into provider. That last will be first and the first will be last. Gets a little more uncomfortable when you realize you can stop being a slave, but now you have to be a better slave master, and that gets awkward when you have to sit back and go, so you mean to tell me that slavery will always exist? Yes, it will always exist. It's all about labor perspectives and cohabitation and being respectful, because with great power comes great responsibility, regardless of how much of it you want and how much of it you can handle. And all of these stories and all of these kind of religions kind of give you all of these, as the world turns, the edge of the night, all these little religious stories are no greater than, the soap operas used to be for many people, as they, oh, what will happen next week? Dun, 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 stay by and walk for that same bad channel, same bad time. It's 2022, and it's so far beyond the you that you think you might find, at a point that you saw, and you know what? What's this nigga talking about? You know what? Whew, let me see what's on. Oh, it's windy. And that's okay. You can do all of that. This shit is done when I hit stop broadcasting. But somewhere around in here, I think somebody needs to at least, stop and think about these things in bits and pieces. I don't have the privilege of being able to talk like, and now we're going to stay on this topic. This is world news, and the next broadcast, and we're going to talk about a lot. No, I'm all over the place. Just structurally, it's a birth defect. Socially dyslexic. I speak in parables instead of in sentences and paragraphs. So, you have to stick around read the whole frickin' book in order for you to understand it. Kind of like religion. Although, everybody breaks down into, what, I've had enough with, we take this from, we go with the doctrine of just this book. And this, that, and the other. And that's where the denominations of all of this stuff that we all have in common is working out. And, I ain't trying to get too deep on that one, because it doesn't really mean a thing until we are more capable of being able to be better at understanding each complex identity of many of the other people that are evolving around you, and it ain't got nothing to do with you, and yet everything from the Tom Swifts to the P Valleys to the Lovecraft, to the Black Panther, to Warrior Woman, and all of this really means a little bit more if you're not really understanding how these things exist only today because they were never given to you to aspire in each generation that has formed who we are today. And that's not telling you a bad thing. It's just in some cases, hopefully, giving you that moment where you go, message. And yet, I'm willing to bet that if there's one person that listened to that one part and got something out of it, they would honestly do themselves a better service to their own selves. And they could do it anonymously. But go over to my Cash App and throw me a couple of bucks. It ain't got to be your ties. But I'm willing to bet that this energy right now is worth. All right. Now, yeah. Let me tell you something about the coffin and why I do this shit on Front Street in front of y'all. And in some cases, I would hope that some people would find a moment where they can look at somebody and they would see their auras, colors, change like northern lights. Maybe this might be too deep for the average person that can't see the indulgence into what cannabis and whatnot brings to you. But how? You know, it would be totally understanding if you were sitting off on the mountains up in Jamaica, looking out at paradise, smoking some good shit. So good that you ain't got to worry about being stuck in that chair around people that you ain't grew up with, but they got you. Oh. But part of the things that we have to keep in mind or side is that in these genetic structures of this, as Dr. Joyce DeGrasse said, post-traumatic slave syndrome that many of us of color share completely around the planet in their own little way. And yet, no matter if we're around each other or not, it's still a challenge when we're in the throes of our own personal kind of discomfort or whatnot. We are not capable of also noticing that, yeah, you know, so are they, so are they, so are they, you know, because, well, it's kind of, I'm trying to think of this thing that really comes to mind right now. This preacher was talking about this instinct, and the way he talked about it was like this. He said, you walk over to a door. He said, you put your hand in the door seal. He said, now when you put your hand in the door seal, I want you to pull the door back and slam it on your hand. Now he said, now when that happens, you will notice that your body, your mind, your instinct will immediately go into pulling that hand back. And you shaking that hand, and you shaking the head. By this time, the little goddamn organ player with the polyester, he catch on to where he going with this shit, and then he throw in some funk. And now it's like, you know, and they're going, what? And they're going, then your hand stops the shaking, and then the pain gets so bad that you get the jumping up and down, and you get the jumping up and down, and you're cussing, and you're fussing, and you're oohing, and you're on, and you're basically in the same instinct of all of that. And he said, the one thing that you wish is that other people can see what you're happening, and then they could see that, and they can end up shaking their hand and jumping up and down and feeling your pain and the whole nine with you, and this, that, and the other. And he mentioned it in the kind of way that being that they were in a church that allowed people to get up and shout, you know, it created a whole environment for that religious experience, for them to see and feel their attachment to this kind of group theory. And not that it's been a bad thing, but what makes it something totally different now is that, you know, it only takes the people living in each doggone community to actually be able to accept and cohabitate with each and every one of their neighbors in such a manner that each block becomes a village, and these villages become a community, and this community becomes, you know, and that requires an exceptional amount of respect and indulgence and whatnot, and all the other blocks and communities and whatnot. And it's difficult for all of us to accept that in its own texture, because many of us have been raised to already be allowed into the hell no state of, even if it's not in my house, I still protested enough to protest it a whole hell of a lot. And yet it's something that basically exists in that spot, you know, in an area that they don't even fucking deal with anyway. You know, why you got to worry about what's going on down the street like that? It's always been, you know, you're a piece of your community, your village rather. You want to accept the mere fact that these things are also needed, you know, for people to, you know, find some of the other, you know, things that they need to, you know, who raised you is becoming the insult of all insults to so many in this world now, because as you grow older, it's what really sucks the most, just due to the mere fact that now at this older age, You still struggle with not being called an elder age, and yet no matter if you want to call yourself elder or not, it's still the privilege of any and everybody else to identify you as they feel fit to do. And it's a real strange concept because only two ways you actually come out of that situation. They rather find you some old person that, some elderly, somebody that really honestly on their nerves, or somebody wise enough not to mess with or to respect. And that's not something you can tell them you got because you wear certain something. And yet, we're talking about the mere fact that, okay, for people of color, as for men of color, it's hard enough for them to deal with their whole prison evolution. Okay, honest, real talk. But it's even more difficult for us to express to our main squeezes, our sisters, our mothers, our friends, our followers, that, baby, like in that scene in Lovecraft episode 7, that little trip that she went on really meant something more deeper because it actually just stated something. And what stuck out the most is how at a certain point that she had achieved her highest power of dominance, freedom, and power, she defined herself as so-and-so's wife. And at that point, in her kind of, but what did I just say? That don't even sound right. I mean, come on, man. It sounds like an oxymoron. Did that come out of my mouth? And it became that scene in just the mere fact, due to the mere fact that her husband sits back and he goes, man, baby, that's beautiful. I've been waiting for you to see you grow to the highest height of your evolution and this, that, and the other. He said, and I just want to, just state, I'm just, wondering, so where am I in this? Because, yeah, this is fine. You can grow up to be the vice president of the United States of the world, but, my black ass, it still would just be, your ex-husband, because you need a nice, clean, white one to at least be up in there, because, they got to have one representative in order for them to accept that you cool with them up in there. And they look at them to go, is they all right? And, yeah, that's my wife. Okay, then they can be Supreme Court Justice. And yet, that shouldn't stop anything, even if that was their story. And yet, we're in a state right now where that's the only thing that can be your savior in sorts, as we try to create a more comfortable, civilization, in our newfound, damn near gentrifiable, cultures and situations here and there. And yet, as WNDC in DC, the more intriguing part is being in a state where all of these things that apply still, but the mere fact that you do not exist within this country, on this continent, but still having mirrored, communities and cultures of that same instinct that you think is really just a shame that they act that way up there down the street or something here in this country, and I've seen it in different places from, like they say the world's a ghetto. Well, what the world needs is non-ghetto people. Trying to say that, their minimized existence, supports their supremacy anymore. It used to be great to aspire to be the working cogs of these things, but now we fear more of just a unionization of, the concept of unions in itself, on so many different levels, but all about labor. I'll do something, I'll work on this, that, and the other, and we're trying to grow into that, but in the meantime, we're trying not to accept the mere fact that genetically we have these moments where we feel like everybody, Like you need to find somebody to pick in the room to take some portion of some shit that ain't supposed to be on you in the first place. And yet, none of us have that convenience anymore. You know? It's like the civil rights movement for a lot of uppity black folks who used to hate seeing all of the other militant black folks that are out there that now have grown to a state where they're not that uppity as their generations prior to them were conditioned to be. And yet we still have to deal with others in the rest of the world that in some cases we've got more droves of people of color in these cultures and pockets of this state of the union we exist, you know, that you know, they still ain't allowed to be, you know, LBGTQ'd or, you know, just a little different, or why should that matter? You know, or, you know, I mean, come on, man, you know, you too far into my business. And yet, it don't need to be that kind of crime for us to not necessarily have to debate anything that we're trying to state, but not trying to be more in a state of apathy than a state of empathy. You know, and it's not really that simple to say you're being, because, you know, as long as you want to justify where you're trying to go with that, you're more in a direction of apathy than you are empathy, because empathy is just the whole force of the feeling. It's not, are you digging where I'm saying? And they're all right there with you, it's the force of the feeling, but it's not invasive, it's not abusive, but it is awkward and uncomfortable when people are trying to tell you something that they need for you to feel in a very awkward and uncomfortable manner, where when they express to you where they was or how they felt, you can feel it on yourself, like, you know, every breath you take, every step you make, and yet, you know, we're not quite ready to get in each other's skin. You know, where you going? You know, if I jump out of my skin, will you jump in? You know, used to be one of those kind of old, you know, color folks, you know, but when I'm talking about this from at least a Lovecraft, Black Warrior, you know, Tom Swift, P Valley, you know what, Black Panther, there's all kind of Bel Air, you know, all these other little things. I'm coming from at least that level and beyond, and where I'm trying to get with this, and yet we still have more people that we fear at every stop in the gas station and everywhere else out there that are still stuck at a certain elementary level of insecurity, just due to the mere fact that we can't save everybody else, but you can't support, you know, communities that exist on a certain kind of insignificant existence in order for them to exist in that little, it feeds itself. And instead of actually believing, I just want to be the top of the king, and, you know, right here in Tupelo, Mississippi, and you're going, nah, you're going to have to rather, you know, get out here and be, you know, somebody that you don't identify from a culture, this, that, and the other, enough for people to say, come on, man, you from my side of the tracks. You know, and yet also not be capable of being able to understand exactly what they're saying from exactly where they're going, when, you know, you get up after that experience and you realize I got to get back on my grind. And they sit back there kind of like looking off as you go off, like the little scenes and the little house, what is that, on the prairie? Yeah. And whatnot, where every time somebody would go off to visit somebody, you see them walking down the road and this and that, and ain't no bus stop or nothing, but they be, see you, and then they might be gone for like a whole episode or a half an episode until they come back, and you going, damn, where you going, this and not realize that, you know, traveling at that time and whatnot actually used to exist to a point of not just hours but days, in some cases weeks or even months. You know, well, you know, we ain't gonna be able to get back, because, you know, that becomes that other season, and, you know, got to wait until that clear up, and, you know, and you can't just call AAA when, you know, you're walking to, you know, and gas prices ain't the least of your worries, you know, when you're in sundown towns. We're leaving that kind of thing, but we're trying to take that stigma away as a reason for us to not think that there's more of a possibility that there might be some really inspiring, productive people that exist on this planet that may just not be absolute, just from a different universe. But they've been saying the same thing, only it's been a different language, this, that, and the other, and all of a sudden, because of this wobble, they become an international something or another, just making that connection so that even if they don't think it really means something, they knew that they would have other people in other places around the planet that they knew that if shit just went down, that they would already be on their way, and they'd be like, man, we already got you set. And yet, we can't forget the mere fact that it's not just about us, but it's about us's and ours and the thems and theirs, and and not the mere fact that part of what's really honestly causing an extra wobble is more of from the X factor of it all, and that's why we're trying to call this the Black Warrior, the this, that, and the other, and then take upon it in the same mentality of the Lovecraft explanation of, it's nothing wrong, baby. It's just that even though you get all this and that and this and the other, it really don't get good until around, 1999. And yet, that's the best that most people can actually agree upon, indulging in an attempt, and yet we're in 2022, party over, out of time, trying to figure out how we can define the memory of how we used to party like it was 1999, and yet do it in a way where, it's not just a Prince thing, it's a P Valley. It's a Tom Sawyer, it's a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's not your great granddaddy's, grandmama's reason to clutch their pearls no more, and we need to, do something more with our hands than always trying to clutch something. Just because, I've never. Well, maybe you should. And so maybe you should take whatever it is that I'm putting down right about in here and find a way of, you can revisit it and regurgitate whatever. You take it as a message from the big giant head or not. But if could be a possible reason for, me to send this out to everybody, and especially the church girls too. Yeah. I would hope that it would find a way of going, it's not that you can't. It's just that there ain't a whole lot of them equipped to a certain level that I have to understand, well, I could rather, but if I don't, who will? And yet you can't make them and then try to figure out how you want to define them, when you find them. And that's not as simple the more that we realize that there's a whole lot better choices if we just continue to travel and find ourselves in places where the odds become more better in your favor of finding someone of that nature, outside of the mere fact that then comes that other thing where now you have to be world travelers together, and everybody don't fight that same fight on a daily basis. And what stood out the most about this whole dynamic of female warriors, this Amazonian thing, is the mere fact that the one thing that I hate that, you read up on it, but they don't really give you that in the last umpteen times that they've given us some image of strong black warrior women. And that's the mere fact that each one of those back in that era, in that concept of that tribe, at that point that they achieved that, they no longer were women, they were men. They identified as men. You call them sir, no matter if they on a cycle or not. You did that because anything else less than that could be an off your head kind of situation, and you probably wouldn't like that. But in the meantime, they still are like the slow song Wildflower. Be careful how you touch her, 'cause she's got triggers. But she's a warrior, and she might flip out and cut your neck off. Lord, Lord. And that's not a threat. That's a reality on so many different levels now, because with the polarities, everyone can have a moment like that and don't even know what's going on with it. And only until they're capable of changing their gender to excuse that. I'm sorry, officer. I was on my period. My bad. And they can't look at you. That's all right. And then you can't go, ma'am. Because, but you can understand. And okay. I get it. It's a little different than that now and where we're at. And I think, if none of this really, does anything for you, maybe you need to just go chill out and, smoke and get your head right and take out about an hour of your life and go back somewhere and plug that bitch back in and just chill out and just, be in WNDC. Because WNDC stands for We in the Crib and You Ain't. And right now, NDC. So with all that being said, I think I got enough off my head that I'm going to leave this alone. And I'm wishing you and your own. Yeah, you good? Yeah.